Good morning. It's Wednesday, the 29th of August. I'm Joanna Gosling. Welcome to BBC Newsroom Live. There are calls for ministers to address what's being called a crisis in children's mental health after a survey by the Children's Society found 22% of girls aged 14 said they deliberately harmed themselves, and gender stereotypes and worries about appearance were contributing to unhappiness. A closer look at the data suggests 1 in 4 girls aged 14 had self-harmed in the year 2015 to 16. Across genders, 1 in 6 reported self-harming at the same age. And from that, the charity estimates 110,000 14-year-olds across the UK may have self-harmed over the same period. Ricky Boletto reports.
All right, Bethany, so this is your microphone.
Bethany started self-harming when she was 13. It's something she's happy to talk about today. She wants to open up to other young people.
I don't think there was really a reason why, but the bullying made me feel really, really depressed. So I think that was kind of a response for me because it was something that I could control.
Starting secondary school was difficult. Bethany said she felt isolated. She kept what she was doing a secret from her mum.
I got a phone call from her teacher actually when I was on the bus on the way in from work, and he said that he needed to have a chat with me, and he just told me that he'd found out that day that Beth was self-harming. So it was a bit of a shock.
5 years on, she stopped harming herself with the support of the Harmless charity.
I think there are a lot of reasons why. I think the pressures of school themselves, you know, with having the GCSEs and all of the work that we have, you know, it can be quite stressful. I think definitely social media, because we see a lot of things where it's like you should look like this and you should wear that and you should have this makeup. And I think there's a lot of stigma associated with how girls should carry themselves as well.
The Children's Society surveyed more than 11,000 children about their lives.
What we found is that since 2009, children have been becoming more unhappy with their lives as a whole, overall, and that particularly that's been driven by girls feeling more and more unhappy with their appearance.
Well, the government say they're spending £1.4 billion on transforming young people's mental health by 2020, with an additional £300 million to provide more help in schools.
So Beth, how long have you been drawing for?
Years. I used to do it when I was little.
Bethany is now focusing on the future. Of course, the scars won't disappear. Her recovery is ongoing.
I feel really confident now, I'm happy, and I feel like I've got myself back.
Ricky Boletto, BBC News.
We're going to be speaking to a psychologist at 12:30, and if you have been affected by any of the issues raised here, you can find details of organisations that offer advice and support on the BBC Action Line website at bbc.co.uk/Action Line. British fishermen are asking for government protection after being attacked by their French counterparts off the coast of Normandy. 35 French vessels gathered on Monday night to stop British scallop dredgers, who they claim are pillaging the shellfish stocks. The local fishermen threw rocks and smoke bombs to deter the British boats, despite them being legally entitled to fish in the area. Lebu De Seco has more.
This is what's being called the Scallop Wars. French fishermen clash with their British counterparts in the sea off the Normandy coast. Rocks and smoke bombs were just some of the things reported to have been thrown at the English and Scottish vessels in the early hours of Tuesday morning.
Essentially, we're fishing 40 miles off the French coast when a flotilla of French fishermen came out, surrounded the vessel, along with mine and other UK vessels, were throwing missiles, trying to put ropes in the propellers and essentially foul the gear. I mean, it was pretty much short of piracy, and we had to evacuate the area. Now, there was a French naval vessel alongside that watched the whole thing, but didn't intervene in any manner. So we are very shocked about the whole situation.
It is the latest instalment in ongoing tension over fishing in these waters. French law says its fishermen can only harvest scallops here between October and May. The Brits face no such restrictions, and the French fishermen, like this one, think that's not fair.
They have no hours, no quotas. They just fill their boats. They come, scrape and leave. They start working a month before us, and they leave us the crumbs.
In previous years, the two sides have been able to come to an agreement to harvest more fairly, but this year that didn't happen. With about 35 vessels to 5, the French far outnumbered the British and ultimately chased them away. Now UK fishermen are demanding government protection. Lebutiseko, BBC News.
A mother and daughter killed in a suspected double murder in Solihull were on the phone to police as they were attacked, according to detectives. Police are continuing to search for Janbaz Terin and his former partner, 22-year-old Ranim Aude, and her mother, Hawla Salim. They were fatally attacked in the early hours of Bank Holiday Monday. Jenny Kumar reports.
The manhunt continues. Police believe 21-year-old Janbaz Terin, an Afghan national here legally, is responsible for the murder of 2 women. His former partner, Ranim Aude, seen here on the left, and her mother, Hawla Salim. Both were Syrian nationals. Ranim had a 2-year-old son and was one of 6 siblings. The women were stabbed to death in the early hours of Monday morning here, near the family's home. Police have now revealed that Ranim Aude was on the phone to them when she was attacked. She'd made a number of calls to them on Sunday. Officers tried to find her but couldn't. When contact was made again, the situation quickly escalated during the phone conversation. The force say officers were dispatched immediately and arrived within minutes. West Midlands Police has referred itself to the Independent Office of Police Conduct over its contacts with the family. Despite a strong public response to the police appeal and a number of raids on properties, there's been no sign of the suspect. Police are asking anyone who does see Mr. Terin not to approach him, but to contact them immediately. Jenny Kumar, BBC News.
Well, let's go now to our correspondent Dan Johnson, who is in Solihull. So, Dan, this revelation that one of the women was actually on the phone to police when she was being attacked, what is the latest from there?
Yes, that's why the Independent Office for Police Conduct has been involved in this investigation right from the start, right from the first investigations here on Monday morning. They said, West Midlands Police, that they had referred themselves to the police watchdog because they'd had previous involvement with the family. Now, it wasn't specified at that stage exactly what that level of involvement was or over what timescale that was, but now West Midlands Police has clarified that it did receive calls from Ranim Aude on Sunday evening, and that she was actually on the phone as she was being attacked. I'll just read you a bit from the West Midlands Police statement, which they've put out to say they want to clarify some of the speculation that there has been about this contact. They say there were a number of calls from Miss Aude to police on Sunday evening, and we tried to physically locate her but were unsuccessful. They say contact was being made to arrange to see Miss Aude, and it was during this conversation that the situation quickly escalated and the call handler immediately dispatched officers to the location in North Down Road, where they arrived within minutes. Well, that is the location here outside the family home where Miss Aude and her mother were both found stabbed to death, and that manhunt now is still going on. The police desperate to try and locate Janbaz Terin. They say they've had some support, some help from the public. They say the response has been positive and helpful, but they still haven't managed to find him. They've located the van they think that he was driving. Neighbours said that he drove away in a van after the attack on Sunday night, and they found that vehicle. They've also found some computers and mobile phones, and they are being examined now. They also think they found the murder weapon. They've recovered a knife or a blade that they think he used in this attack, but they've still not found Janbaz Terin himself.
How far afield are they searching?
We don't actually know, but I think it's fair to assume that an alert will have gone out right across the country, so all the police forces will have been alerted. It's safe to assume officials at ports, airports will have been on alert looking out for Janbaz Terin, but you've got to bear in mind the possibility that he could have escaped very quickly in the early hours of Monday morning before they were able to spread the word, and we didn't even get a description of him until the end of the day on Monday, so it has taken time for details to emerge about who he is. He's an Afghan national who was said to be living in the UK legally. He's 21 years old. We know that he lived in Birmingham, and a number of addresses there have been searched, but this manhunt has been widening, has been growing, has been intensifying over the last few days.
Thank you very much, Dan. Theresa May will visit Africa's biggest economy, Nigeria, on the second day of a trade mission to Africa aimed at strengthening economic ties ahead of Brexit. The Prime Minister announced £4 billion of extra British support for African economies during the first leg of her trip yesterday. Mrs May will meet victims of modern slavery and unveil a series of measures to cut illegal migration into Europe from West Africa. A British-Iranian woman jailed in Iran has been taken to a prison hospital after she reportedly blacked out. Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe was jailed for 5 years in 2016 after being convicted of spying, which she denies. Her husband, Richard Ratcliffe, said his wife had suffered several panic attacks yesterday and today. The Northern Ireland Fire Service says there are grave concerns that an historic building in the heart of Belfast city centre could collapse. Around 100 firefighters have been tackling a blaze in the Primark store inside listed bank buildings since yesterday morning. There are fears the 5-storey building could now collapse. Our Ireland correspondent Chris Page has more.
All over the city, people saw the smoke in the sky. But most didn't realise how bad the blaze was until pictures like these appeared. Let's go! Shoppers and about 150 staff were evacuated from the Primark store within minutes of the fire breaking out.
The side the lifts are on was very busy, so it was a race for people to kind of come down the lifts and the stairs, so I kind of ran out as quick as possible.
No one was injured, but the interior of the building disintegrated as the fire ripped downwards. Several times it seemed firefighters had got the blaze under control, but every now and again there were what sounded like small explosions within the store. With each one, the flames burst out again.
This is an extremely dramatic and really very unnerving sight. A major store reduced to a blackened shell by the most severe fire here in Belfast city centre for many years.
The building has quite a history. It's been here since the late 18th century and has been a bishop's residence and a bank in the past. Primark had spent £30 million on a renovation project which was just about to finish. But business leaders now fear retailers in this area are facing a big financial hit.
There is going to be a period of major disruption. Yeah, heartbreaking, to be honest. Not much more you can say on that.
Hundreds of people who work and shop in Northern Ireland's capital will be affected. This blaze was the most sudden of blows, but its consequences will be felt for a long time. Chris Page, BBC News, Belfast.
Our Ireland correspondent Emma Vardy says authorities are still not sure what caused the fire.
No real clues yet, and certainly no statement from the fire service about exactly what caused this blaze. We know that there was still refurbishment work going on in the building, and that fire, which you saw, started on the top floor of that building, but it had just been coming to the end of a £30 million piece of refurbishment work. So incredibly devastating for many people who've worked at the building and lots of prospective staff who were due to start their jobs there very soon. And today, a lot of sadness in Belfast, really, because it is such a focal part of the town's high street. This historic 200-year-old building now just standing there as a blackened shell, and people just looked on with dismay, really, as it burnt down yesterday. And you can't see on camera, but there's about 100 people stood around just now who've come to the cordon just to take a look. And it's expected that there could be significant cost to the city because of this. And today there is a 45-metre cordon which remains in place around the the building. And as a result of that, many of the shops right in the city centre are having to be closed, and fire services said that this cordon may have to remain in place for the next few days. Now, the reason for that is structural engineers have had a look at this building today. They've made an initial assessment and say that the exterior of the building is intact, but parts of the inside are still collapsing, and they expect those collapses to continue throughout the day. So for the safety of pedestrians and neighbouring businesses, this huge cordon around the heart of the city centre remains in place.
Now, an update on our headlines on BBC News. Ministers are being urged to address a crisis in children's mental health after a survey finds a fifth of girls aged 14 said they had self-harmed. British boats demand government protection after clashes with French vessels over scallop fishing rights. And a manhunt continues for 21-year-old Janbaz Tarin as it emerges one of the two women stabbed to death in Solihull was on the phone to police as she was attacked.